Hi, I'm Gabe Ramirez.
And I'm Idalia Pineda.
And we're broadcasting live from California State University, San Bernardino, channel 662. Hi everyone, my name is Gabe Ramirez, and today I'm going to be talking to you about human resource management and the climate for motivation. You know, the world has changed enormously over time, and working conditions and attitudes and expectations that prevailed prior to the Industrial Revolution were very different from those that have developed during this period of social, technological, and economic change. To retain good staff and to encourage them to give their best while at work requires attention to detail. And things like financial, psychological, and even physiological rewards offered by the organization must continue to be a basic exercise. Financial rewards and conditions of service, for example, working hours per week, are determined externally by the national bargaining or government minimum wage legislation. In many occupations, as much as 50% of the gross pay of manual workers is often the result of local negotiations and, for example, which particular hours shall be worked. Of conditions of service that are often more important than the basics. Hence, there is a scope for financial and other motivations to be used at local levels. As various staffing needs will vary the productivity of the workforce, so personnel policies are desirable. The latter can depend on other factors like environment, welfare, and employee benefits. But unless the wage packet is accepted as fair and just, there will be no motivation. Hence, while the technicalities of payment and other systems may be the concern of others, the outcome of them is a matter of great concern to human resource. Increasingly, the influence of behavioral science discoveries are becoming more important, not merely because of the widely acknowledged limitations of money as a motivator, but because of the changing mix and nature of tasks. For example, more service and professional jobs and far fewer unskilled and repetitive production jobs. The former demand better educated, mobile, and multi-skilled employees, much more likely to be influenced by things like job satisfaction, involvement, participation, than the economically dependent employees of yesteryear. The goal is to bring together a collection of resources that describe and comment on the key variables in the organizational environment that relate to employee motivation and productivity. So let's go into our top 10 list for motivating employees. Number 10. Reduce negative supervisory relationships. Number 9, minimize demotivating effects and rules of regulations. Number 8, meaningful control over the work environment. Number 7, feedback that provides recognition and opportunity for development. Number 6, assignments that allow for meaningful contributions to society. 5, friendly and cooperative workplace relations. 4, opportunities for challenge and training. 3, meaningful rewards and recognition. 2, relevant benefits. And the number 1 is competitive salary. I want to thank you, and back to the studio, Idalia.
Hello everyone, my name is Idalia, and I will be speaking about motivational theories from Chapter 6. The orchestra leader must motivate others to create the beautiful sound of the symphony. Similarly, the quality manager must motivate others in order to obtain excellent results. Motivation theories attempt to explain why people do what they do so that managers can learn how to influence or motivate them to accomplish the tasks necessary for the success of the organization. A central insight is the strategies that treat employees in a one-size-fits-all way, or which assume that employees are similarly motivated, are apt to be ineffective. Therefore, a bit more sophistication is needed. You can either focus on factors inherent in individuals, such as their need for appreciation, achievement, and creativity, as well as their mental health, whether they are depressed or anxious. External circumstances factors include effects of job goals, salary, work, obstructions, supervision, and leadership, which also influence motivation. We have to remember that a key principle of motivation is that people are motivated to pursue and satisfy their need. As President Eisenhower once said, motivation is the art of getting people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it. Bloom's expectancy theory of motivation is based on the premise that people are motivated to experience pleasure and avoid pain, and that they put forward efforts that reflect this fact. The chain of events is as follows. First, efforts lead to performance, performance leads to rewards, and rewards lead to need attainment. This makes three key assumptions. Number 1, the more value a person places on an outcome, the more effort he will put forward. This is valence of outcomes. Number 2, the more a person believes that he or she has the ability to achieve an outcome, the more effort he or she is likely to put forward. This is expectancy of efforts. Number 3, the more a person believes that reward will be forthcoming as a result of this performance, the more effort he will put forward. This is instrumentality of performance. Finally, we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is central to understanding motivation. First, we have basic drives ensuring survival. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is central to understanding motivation. First, we have basic drives ensuring survival. Second, we have physical and psychological safety. Number 3, we have group belonging, self-esteem, and finally, actualization of oneself. And now, Gabe, back to you in the studio.
Today we're going to be talking to you about motivation and compensation with contributions from our special correspondents Scott, Sergio, Richard, and Tasia, who are located in our satellite studios throughout Southern California. These stories and more after a short commercial announcement.
Hello, Dr. Van Wart. Thank you for coming to see us today.
Thanks. I have several unmotivated employees. Studies show that less than 1 in 4 non-management employees are not fully engaged with their jobs. Can you help?
An employee's relationship with her direct manager is the single most important factor influencing engagement. The responsibility falls to management to improve motivation.
Yes, we can help. Our fee is $1 million. Ha 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 ha.
Thank you. There are several tools that managers can use to help motivate employees. Some of these include compensation, promotions, and benefits. These can all be effective in different circumstances with different types of employees. Tonight, however, I would like to focus on interpersonal strategies to help motivate both managers and employees. If implemented correctly, these provide a win-win for everyone, a give and take, if you will. One such tool is the psychological contract. This is a relatively modern theory discussed by researcher Denise Rousseau. It is modern partially because of the changing work environment of today's worker. America has gone from the Industrial Revolution with specialized jobs and union protections to flexible, uncertain, at-will employment. Today's workforce is better educated with less deference to authority. This has redefined the relationship between manager and employee. The foundation of the psychological contract is communication. Good communication and trust must be established between both the manager and the employee. A psychological contract is unwritten. A manager might want an employee to focus on a specific project. An employee may want increased training and opportunity for promotion. The types of psychological contracts vary and generally improve as communication improves. These contracts not only increase motivation, but overall job satisfaction and trust. This does not mean that all psychological contracts can be fulfilled. Perhaps the employee wants a raise in a time of a wage freeze, or the manager wants the employee to work on weekends. With good communication, however, these contracts can be negotiated and altered so compromise can be found. When should a manager or employee instigate a psychological contract? Ideally, this would be at the beginning of the employment relationship, as manager and employee protocol is being negotiated. Like any contract, however, a breach can occur. This can lead to a negative psychological contract. Authoritative demands are many times at the root of the problem and can result in demotivation and disenchantment. Upholding psychological contracts can be a particular problem for middle managers as they balance the expectations of their supervisors with the psychological contracts of their subordinates. Another type of motivation is feedback. Although many managers give some sort of feedback, these are not necessarily consistent or timely. Research has proven that for feedback to be effective, it must be regular and constructive. This does not mean a manager should have an emotional outburst just because it's timely. This can produce resentment and distrust. Managers must balance both positive and negative aspects of feedback and give employees the tools necessary to control their own outcomes. Lack of feedback is surprisingly common in the real world. Sometimes managers assume they are giving proper feedback when their messages may be mixed or confusing. One of the better tools used by some organizations is the 360-degree feedback used on performance evaluations. This provides feedback from not only the manager but from peers as well. This gives a balanced approach from many different constituents and has proven to be very effective in providing good overall feedback from a variety of sources. The prior discussion does assume that employee and manager want what is best for the organization. Unfortunately, this is not always the case, as some people simply are difficult and lack rational discourse. In situations like this, sometimes it must be quick and controlling. In this day and age of corporate bullies, hidden agendas, passive-aggressive tendencies, incessant complaining, and outright hostility, it would be naive to say that all feedback is constructive. Managers in these types of situations must assure the feedback is quick and to the point. Clear communication and boundaries must be established. Thank you. Back to you.
Satisfaction can decrease. Unwanted benefits can be seen more as a salary reduction than a benefit per se. Benefits are available to all members, irrespective of employee performance, which limits organizational goals for the utility of benefits. Through history, benefits have partially offset low-paying salaries due to the cost of benefits being put off by lawmakers as the visibility is far less to voters than say a pay increase. Breaking news. In summary, it is reported that the determination of external equity, as we know it, should recognize that conventional free market supply and demand theories actually conceal more than they reveal concerning labor markets. Further information on the subject will refer to internal consistencies. Pay decisions are a decision made with the compensation structure framework. Job evaluation methods are systematically used to assess the job value and assign jobs to particular salary grades. Internal equity serves to reward jobs of equal value with the same amount and pay jobs of different values according to a set of acceptable differentials. Pay banding is a technique reform projects are focused on, which was made popular by downsizing and delayering that characterize many restructured organizations. Salary structure can be made more flexible by separate job levels being grouped into broad categories of related jobs. This allows the discretion in setting pay by grouping pay ranges and adjusting pay. Some important terms in differentiation to meaning that are a necessity to comprehend are group pay and adjusting pay.
Thanks, Gabe. Hi, everyone. I'm Richard Bond, and I'll be bringing you updates on compensation. Organizations either lead, match, or lag behind what other employers offer employees in terms of compensation. The approach of government in the United States has been to prepare certain candidates to accept non-competitive pay. Pay is not necessarily seen as a strategic tool to influence greater work production, but is seen as a cost to be managed. Since the passage of the 1883 Pendleton Act, public servants have been expected to make financial sacrifices in order to serve the public. Public service was intended to create career professionals, instill the political intrigue by providing job security, career progression, and reasonable benefits, also while working conditions are very top-notch. Among other things, these professionals represent an extremely small portion of the workforce, held little political power, no authority to organize, and no ability to strike. This all changed in the 1960s. There were many more public employees than anticipated. They had fallen far behind in pay compared to other professions, and the right to organize was also gained. In order to try to match government pay to private sector pay, the 1962 Federal Salary Reform Act was adopted. It attempted to match federal pay to that of the private sector. Next, Federal Comparability Act of 1970 was put into place to establish a mechanism to provide annual comparability adjustments, unless the President directed otherwise, which, of course, was the case for nearly every year for 2 decades. Finally, in 1989, the first National Commission of Public Service called for a significant salary increase, while the passage of the 1990 Federal Employees Pay Comparability Act spearheaded the fight to close a 30% public-private sector pay gap by the end of the century. As of 2003, the pay gap has been even wider due to severe economic conditions, which those in power have stated as a reason to deny full pay raises. If these raises that were promised had taken effect by 2008, the gap would have been decreased to roughly 20%. And that's all I got for you. Back to you, Gabe.
Hello everyone. I will now be providing you with an overview of Chapter 7. We will then discuss equity and we will finalize with pay determination. Compensation quantifies the individual-organization relationship. Earnings affect individuals in many ways. For example, they affect economically, socially, and psychologically. Earnings is also a concrete indicator of employee value to the institution, purchasing power, social prestige, and even self-worth. The organization also makes a substantial investment. Payroll accounts for over 80% of the budget. A compensation system then aims to align these parties' objectives. Money is important to everyone. Therefore, organizations have the right to expect their staff to be as productive as possible. Likewise, employees have the right to be compensated fairly. As such, organizations might have the following goals: attract new employees, reward and retain current staff, provide equity, control budgets, support a culture that the organization wants to foster. The way in which an organization handles salaries and benefits is very important. On one hand, competence and performance may be difficult to judge. On the other hand, pay and benefits are known around the organization, as much as you and I require employees not to share this information with other employees. It is a lost cause. This is a popular topic during the famous 10-minute breaks and the lunch hour, especially in the employee lounge. This brings about reasons for discontent. It is widely known that employees at one point or another are unhappy due to compensation structures. They compare the same job within the agency, different jobs within the agency, those holding equivalent positions in other departments. Also, remuneration is driven by political rather than economic considerations. And finally, taxpayers believe that civil servants are overpaid and underworked. This brings us to the equity theory. The equity theory is a balance between employee contributions and organization rewards. This is almost like a three-link causal chain: value, instrumentality, and expectancy. The value an employee places on a desired result, for example, could be higher pay. The person's belief that rewards will actually be given as a result of higher performances. Expectancy. The belief that the individual can accomplish that will lead to reward. If any of these are broken, then pay for performance comes into question. Some questions to keep in mind. Do employees value available rewards? Do employees see a link between reward and their performance? Are employees confident, given their background and organizational climate, that tasks can be accomplished? This brings us to pay determination. Pay determination addresses two specific steps: pay level and pay adjustments. Compensation in any jurisdiction is a product of the following: pay philosophy as informed by law, labor market forces external competitiveness, job content, individual contribution. Thank you for your time.